Good afternoon, everyone. So, in the previous session, also discussion did center around AI tools and its efficacy in financial and analytics. And so, I think we will carry on that discussion over from that particular panel. And we have a great panel with us representing various sectors from fertilizers and fertilizers to Resurgent. Then you are in the midst of, technology.
In the midst of
the
tech.
right person
Yeah.
to talk about all the issues, but I'll restrict myself to certain aspects.
Sure.
And then you are from Shiprocket. My first question to the panel is, basically, I need to know, is there enough clarity about how best to use AI? Because while it's the buzzword, have organizations gone through that kind of rigorous brainstorming about what aspects to be used, where to be used, and how to be used? So starting with you, sir.
So the answer is yes and no. And what at least we are doing is that we are actually testing all the products right now in AI as well as analytics, what would actually work, understanding where it will work. So we have obviously done a lot of work on supply chain management, especially on the pricing tools, on the decision making. In fact, for fertilizers specifically, we have gone even to the extent that we actually create and get data from the farmers, and we understand their needs, and we are able to place our product based on what the need would be, based on the prediction of the rainfall, for an example, or which area where the crops are grown, what kind of products that would make. The other thing which we are doing right now, especially on the tech side, is for pricing, as I said, what kind of pricing is required, so that the discussion actually ends up into an order. Because earlier what used to happen was that there would be a judgment call from the salesperson or the CSR guy, and we are able to differentiate and get better. And in the earlier panels there was a discussion, obviously AI cannot take obviously place of a human intellect, which is correct, but I can tell you based on the experience that the decision making has become far more sharper overall, the way I see. But it doesn't come automatically. You have to test what you want as a company, and the second thing, which tools would actually suit your requirements the best, because nothing is actually available off the shelf today. Everything needs to be implemented, which is very, very customized and implemented for the specific needs of the company. That's the way I would answer it.
Mr. Gadia.
Thank you, ma'am. In my opinion, what I have seen that in terms of whatever the AI or the software that we are talking about, there are two ways that the company purchases it. It is either that the company knows exactly what they want and then they hire a vendor who and the company tells the vendor कि ये input है, ये output है, these are the things that need to be done. Everything the company knows, उसको पता है क्या कराना है, and this is how it works. This is one way. The second way is that कि otherwise the sum of the vendor keeps on sending us emails, and then we try to उसको बुला के उसका demo देखो, उसका product देखो. We have understood it from the market कि this is the new type of a product which has come up. Based on the market intelligence, we call the vendor and then we tell them कि you come and give us a demo of the product. Now, in both the things, what is happening? In the first one, when the company knows exactly what need to be done, it is such a dynamic in nature, it is such a cost-provoking thing कि उसके अंदर कभी कोई आदमी change हो जाए, that is actually never get implemented in totality when the company start getting implemented from scratch to end of the thing. Secondly, when any of the vendor coming in and telling us कि sir, I have got a solution for this thing, 90% of the time what happens is that कि whatever the input document that he is wanting and whatever that connection with the existing system that need to be done, वो कभी नहीं हो पाता, because if there is a Salesforce which I am using, I have done some sort of a data structure in that way or the other. There is another माने हरी भाई आए और उन्होंने बोला कि ज्योति हमने एक AI का सॉफ्टवेयर बनाया, it will capture the data from your CRM and then it will start doing it. Boss, my CRM data is not even captured in that way that whatever the Hari sir's, the software, whatever that Hari sir has developed, वो इसको इनपुट उस तरीके से दे के आने के लिए आई विल टेक अनदर 1 ईयर और आई हैव टू मेरे को लास्ट 5 साल का डेटा ओनली 1 फील्ड इज मिसिंग आई माइट बी डूइंग 90% ऑफ द थिंग ओनली 1 फील्ड इज मिसिंग बेस्ड ऑन दैट वट एवर इज द टॉप ऑफ द सॉफ्टवेयर दैट आई नीड टू इंस्टॉल that doesn't get installed at any point of time. So as any point of time, whenever I see this software, so these are the two type of dilemma which I always faces. So I've got Hari sir and everybody here, so they need to answer this, that how we need to solve this type of a dilemma.
So before I come to you, I would like to ask you your experience about
Using AI?
Yes.
No, so let me just first add to what everybody said on the first question and come to my experience of it. So very clearly, is there clarity or is every organization clear in terms of how they will use AI? I think the answer is evolving, because the whole set of tools and technology is growing at such a pace that it's almost impossible to keep track of it. Most of us who use the word AI are using it in the context of a very intelligent BI tool or a demand planning tool or a RPA tool. Now they are AI, right? But the level at which AI tools have now evolved, the amount of intelligence that one can use, whether for financial analysis or for forecasting or for anything or just for data retrieval, is unbelievable. I work for a technology company. We have like in a month transactions run in tens of millions. There are lakhs of merchants on our platform who are transacting, and for us this is extremely key, right? Now, for a simple, I will give you an example. Our team was making a bot for our customers where they can just chat and retrieve some data in terms of how their performance is. And I was there and looking at the tool which was in beta, and I said, shit, why can't I use it? And then realized that, imagine, we can create a tool which can simply, you can just write, give me a trend of this, and it gives you a graph. It sits on our database, gives you a graph, gives you trends, gives you insight. We are working on something like this for our finance team, since the topic is that, and we will have that in hopefully 4 months' time. So it is something that I don't think I had visualized 3 months back till I saw that. So therefore, my answer to this is yes, we have used it at many places. All of us have. Do we really know the limits of it or the places where we can use? I think we are learning.
Coming to you, sir, I want to know, he said that the technology is evolving at such a fast pace. It obviously brings into focus the regulatory mechanism. Are the new technologies in sync with the present regulatory mechanism, and also what changes are needed in the regulatory mechanisms?
Well, that's a very interesting question, and I can probably explain a few of the things that we do as a company, because we are like one of the thought leaders in the implementation of AI, and we lead in what we call as responsible and ethical AI. Coming to the regulatory framework. And this is basically like you're talking about the pitfalls or shortcomings of an AI, and think about how you can actually plan for that and mitigate the problem, right? So coming to think of it, it goes into multiple different dimensions depending on the industry that you operate in and depending on what kind of data that you are possessing. Starting with a very simple data privacy issue from a GDPR if you're operating in a European market, or a POPIA if you're operating in a South African. And of course, in our own country now, we have our data protection bill that's about to become a law. So now you have to be very clear about how you are going to protect the data, how you are going to make sure that it is really safe. Because The entire premise of AI, the success of AI draws from a very strong underlying data lake, right? And that data lake has to be accessible to the AI engine if it has to get meaning out of it and give you answers for every question that you have. Now it can be a omnipresent, omnipotent entity, almost like the Almighty. It can give you answers for everything, but it needs access to the data. Now if you have to provide access to that data lake, what is the ring fencing you need to do around your data so that it does not step out of your organization is number one. Similarly, there are countries which have got regulations in place where it says your data cannot cross my country's boundaries. And that's a very, very difficult situation to solve for. And thirdly, looking at the security, which is around the cyber security element of it. Because now life is centered everywhere around cloud, and all of your data is all on the cloud. Now what happens if there is one instance of a cybersecurity issue? Somebody taps into your network. So those are all different elements that we need to think about. Now, these are underlying plain problems. The complicated problem is that of AI itself. And that basically stems from what is AI's strength naturally becomes its own weakness. AI's strength of being able to crunch data, do deep analysis, do deep learning, and then come out with an answer is itself its own weakness. In what way? Let's say you build a AI engine to, let's say we have a lot of students around here, and the students are putting in their applications for a job. And you build a nice engine. That engine is going to filter out applications and give you the top 10 qualifying people. Now you have built the engine with a particular logic, but what the AI will give you may not necessarily be of the same logic that you have constructed, because it is going to continuously learn. So it is going to look at every person who has survived in this company, who has been a star performer in the last X, Y number of years. It's going to learn from history and say, for a person to be successful in this company, the applicant should be named Gadia. The last name should be Gadia, and that person should actually be coming from Gurgaon. Then this person will be a fantastic guy. Possible. And I'm not making this up, because there is a case law on this. This has happened, and if you guys want to look up, you can research on this, on the name Jared with lacrosse as the sport. This is a particular 2 pieces of info that a system built on its own. It did a machine learning, deep learning, and it said somebody with this 2 characteristics is going to be a fantastic guy. So this is a inherent problem that comes with AI, which actually leads us to a concept of bias. And that is where we have a problem of whether the AI engine is going to really do an ethical job, and can you rein in the AI engine? Do you really know what it is going to come up with? Because you have built it with an intent, but what it throws out as an answer may not be completely in your control. And in that form, when you look at AI, it's typically like a black box, right? You don't know what it's turning out to be. So then, are we getting into a trouble here? Looking into the future, are we going into a kind of a bicentennial man kind of a situation, or we are going to age of Transformers, Rise of Machines kind of a thing? You don't know what we are getting into. So the only way to look at it is focus all your efforts on building an ethical and responsible AI. And when we say that, there are 3 or 4 fundamental principles. You should first focus on transparency. Now, the underlying tenet of the AI, the underlying tenet of your product should be very clear and transparent and should be easily explainable. So one of the things coming up in AI, which everybody will learn about, is explainable AI is a concept. Now we talk about generative AI, which is shortened as Gen AI. We talk about predictive AI, and there is a concept called explainable AI. Now the chat GPT that we work on, it falls in the category of non-explainable AI. So there may be answers which chat GPT will give you, and this I will tell to the student community, it may not always be right. Please don't trust every answer that chat GPT gives you. It is not intended to be always right. But there are the other categories of AIs which can be built as explainable AIs, where to test out how it is giving a particular answer. Now there are concepts like SHAP values. There is a concept called LIME, which is locally interpretable machine, agnostic kind of explanation that can be brought out of it. So there are different models on how you can bring out transparency. Keep accountability as very important, which is, I think in one of the previous panels somebody spoke about the tone at the top. Starting from all the way, the decision should be very clear, the focus should be very clear on setting the right kind of expectation from the system and taking accountability for it. And then finally, the last point would come down to keeping a human in the loop. AI cannot be just allowed to operate on its own in its own world. It cannot dictate humans. Eventually, in any AI project, there has to be one human in the loop who will provide the supervisory support, and then that is the only way that you can keep this in check.
Thank you.
Just to add to what he just said, right? So, since the question was the regulatory framework, while the new law addresses the things around privacy and security, everything else, which is the liability around what the output is and what the quality of output is, how the data will get used, the whole issue of black box, whole the issue of having a transparency about how the algorithm is, none of it even is thought about in the regulation that is there.
And
So
that's coming,
there
by
is
the
a
way.
lot-
That's coming, by the way. European Union has adopted a law on artificial intelligence last month, just
Yes.
about 1.5 months ago. And US is following suit. And most of the other countries are preparing their framework. So there is going to be something on a specific law on artificial intelligence itself. So it's coming on the way.
Yes, yes. So I was referring to the Indian law.
Sure. Coming back to Mr. Rastogi, so what has been the organization's approach towards training aspect of AI? Like when you recruit newcomers, do you look for a certain skill set? How are the training programs happening in the organization? And your own, upskilling efforts in this regard?
So I will give you a live example. We are actually implementing Industry 4.0 at this point in time. And the question was whether the manufacturing folks are actually equipped. And we have people who are working in the company for 20 years, 30 years, 35 years, because they are day in and day out manufacturing folks, and we need those guys who actually understand the machines. Not per se the technical part, but they understand the machine so that the product is actually available whenever is required to be done. Now, are they really tech savvy? Because one of the one of the requirements for Industry 4.0 is that all the machines should talk to each other, so that all the data comes as a part of the data, like which he was mentioning. And then from a preventive maintenance perspective, or anything which you have to do, how the machine is going to perform, what kind of productivity with the machine is going to give, where it is going to fail, what product, what part will actually fail, all these things are there. And what we did was that, we actually had a list of questions to all our technicians who are actually working on the shop floor to understand their ability to imbibe the new technology. And based on that, the training modules are actually getting developed. To what extent the person would be able to train himself or herself, or if he or she cannot actually, because there are some people who cannot take it. So you give them a job which is less tech savvy, so that the organization doesn't suffer, but at the same time the individual actually does the job where he or she actually likes. So it's a mixed bag. It's no straight answer. And at the end of the day, it is about your own motivation as an individual, how much you are able to actually learn. Now with the new age kids, the benefit is that as they grow up, there is so much of tech. They have actually seen it. But in the earlier generations, they have not done it. And they don't feel using it because they feel like they are not in control of what they are trying to do. And so we are trying to do our best, but it's a learning for everybody. And the tech is changing so fast that today you implement something, tomorrow the version would change, third day the version would change, and you have to continuously evolve as an organization and as well as for the individuals as well. So that is what we have done, and we have huge budget for trainings. Obviously not as much what the IT companies are doing, because they have to do it day in and day out just for their own sake. But for us also, to be in the business, I think it has become far more important now.
Mr. Gadia, in your organization, what has been the experience in terms of implementing AI for accuracy and speed for planning, and also day-to-day tasks, so that the top management is free for strategic initiatives?
Two things. First of all, I can say that for a company like us also, we are for a smaller companies also and for a mid-sized companies also, the mindsets that changed. Now the promoter or the company people, they are willing to take more risk, or they are willing to experiment more. They are willing to take कि चल एक बार try करके देखते हैं एक बार. So that type of an attitude which has come up, so that's again a very, very good thing. Again, as the Haribhai told that since we were trying to implement one chat GPT type of a concept in our company, where we have got all the HRMS is a different software, our CRM is a different software, our accounts is a different software, our project management is a different software. So everything we are managing, but it is through a different platform that we are managing. So we were trying to see कि ये जो 4 या 5 software, whatever the 4 or 5 software that we are having internally, how we can have combined at one place, and it should have a chat GPT type of an answer that whenever we want any question, the chat GPT type of it should talk to my HRMS software and take something from the accounts, take it something from the project, and then give us the thing. But what happened was that either the cost of the smaller mid-time company, which were affordable, we were not able to trust कि sir the data of that Resurgent boundaries, it will not go out, and what is the logic that they are using. They are not able to convince us from that cost perspective or from that logic perspective. And from all the bigger companies that we were talking about, the cost is so prohibitive enough for us that we are not able to take that plunge, whether we should go ahead or not. So now we are at that dilemma कि what we should do. We have the idea, we know what need to be done, but the cost, वो AI बोलने से ही सर वो cost 10 गुना बढ़ जाता है सर आप लोग के यहाँ. वो cost के अंदर लग के आ जाएगा, वो AI बोल देंगे. So what is now happening at the present moment, the cost for all the mid-sized companies for implementing anything of that sort, it has become such a cost prohibitive matter. And plus it is, and it is like a black box to me. We don't even know ki, sir, how the things are getting connected. At least from if I'm doing some HRMS software, if I'm doing some project management software, I know the input. I exactly know that what they are doing, they are just sorting the huge data point for me, whatever the relevant information we want, it is coming, how it is calculating, from which cell it is coming, what is the data structure that they have. We are exactly knowing what is happening. But when you talk about something कि सर ये तो AI बन के आ जाएगा, तो it means AI बन के आ जाएगा means हमको नहीं पता है calculation कैसे होगा. मतलब AI बन के आ जाएगा in case if any person is using telling कि सर ये AI लगा रखें, it means I don't know कि सर ये calculation होता कैसे है. So it means in case if there is anything which is explainable, it is not an AI. If it is not explainable, it is called an AI. So this is what our understanding from a common layman perspective is.
I think just going back to it, probably you need to consult somebody like us who can give you real, clean, understandable AI, right?
So coming to you again, sir, because you would get a lot of concerns from across the industries. If you can highlight some of these concerns and how to address those here.
Well, I think he just gave a bunch of concerns. There are a lot of concerns which will keep coming from different industries. But I'll tell you, the concerns start from where? The root of the problem is not truly understanding what is AI all about. I think it's all about the hype that's created around AI. In fact, we have published a separate ebook, and that's available for download on our website, Beyond the Hype of AI. And looking back at how CFOs treat the world of AI, 2-3 years back, obviously during COVID times, everybody was on the internet, all data had come to the cloud, so you had a lot of opportunity to bring AI into life. That's how AI happened. But it's not like AI just came into life yesterday. Do you imagine when the seeds of AI were sown? Any rough ideas? Can you imagine? Rough shot? 1950s. The Alan Turing test that we are talking about today, Alan Turing's time, it's from the 1950s. A concept of AI actually took place from there. 1956 or 54 somewhere in MIT lab, a gentleman developed what is today's chatbot. He developed a concept called ELIZA. He developed a chatbot, and it got so wild, so nicely done, programming, that he had to literally kill ELIZA at some point because his secretary was not actually addressing or answering his calls. Secretary was busy chatting with the ELIZA. And then AI was just thawing for all this long. There was a long winter period, and it again picked up steam because now all data was available. Like I said, the core concept of data lake being available, etc. It has brought AI into life. Now, to address the concerns, what should happen? From a CFO standpoint, again, not as a IT company. I'm now talking as a CFO's world. Most recent surveys done with with large CFOs has actually proven that CFOs are now looking at this as a serious concern. Just exactly aligning with my friend Jyoti. In CFO's lens, there were a list of concerns, top concerns in their viewpoint. The top one being lack of access to capital was the number one. The number two thing was a hasty AI adoption. And this is a worldwide top CFO survey. The top two, number second risk is hasty AI adoption. And people have started to see the reality of it because everybody can just pass off some product saying that, hey, this is like, this got AI. It's an AI-enabled product, please buy this. And that is where the problem becomes bigger. So how do you address that? There are two ways to it. One is to either go for a very, very established AI product. But in today's world, you cannot call anything as really finalized, fine-tuned, perfect product because the world of AI itself is still evolving, right? And the second option, like Mr. Deepak said, is to invest in building AI internally, which companies can go for. But there is a big challenge there. If you don't go with the right partner, then it is actually designed to fail. It is like, typical of any big transformation project. McKinsey's reports always say, any big transformation project, the success rate is less than 30%. Now, if it comes to a digital transformation project, as big as an AI thing, then the success rate is even lower. And even if you successfully implement an AI project, the ROI is going to be in the smallest single digits if it is not done in the right way. And within the next 1 year, 6 to 12 months, it will start falling. Because the product or the solution that you are implementing has to be something that can scale up. And there has to be continuous work that has to happen. There has to be a right team that is available who can explain what is inside the black box also, right? Because the business keeps evolving. As your market changes, market volatility, the customer preferences, all this keep changing. For instance, I'll give you a simple example. If we build a prediction engine for estimating when can you expect collections to come out from Resurgent India. Resurgent is one of your customers. And it's a standard fact that they always pay in the third day of every month, right? You build an engine for that. The engine is all set. Now suddenly, Jyoti decides that he will not pay on the third. His business has changed and he wants to pay only on the 15th. Your prediction engine will go wrong. Unless you have got this as an area that can be edited, that can be addressed, and the AI engine has to be continuously tweaked and changed for all these changes. So people build AI solutions without understanding the core of the business because AI is only helping you to solve an underlying business problem. It's only a layer. It's only something sitting on top. But if the core of the business problem is not well understood and not translated into the AI solution, then your product is designed to fail, clearly. So the layer can always be built by techies. But the solution to the problem, your business problem, should come from a CFO. And that is why AI design cannot be just taken in isolation by a technical person. They cannot build a right AI for you. It has to be built by a functional person with the right inputs about problem solving. What is your real issue? To solve the problem, what is the design? Has to come from the functional guy, typically CFOs, who understand the business fully, and then the solution is built. That will be the right way to address the solution.
Let me understand. In my opinion, whatever has been successful in my journey in whatever the IT adoption that our company has done, that whatever the complications in terms of search engine that I have made within the company, that has been successful. Because earlier, if you talk about if you go to any of the search engine, if you talk to him only one question, it will be answer. But and this, and this, and this, or this, and if there is a multiple questions, into one question, if I am asking 5 points that the software has to go and search, there are something and there is something called or. If there is a very complicated question that the IT is perfectly able to answer, that is where it is there. But if I go and tell them, because I am telling them, I am asking him a question which I know my question. I know ki sir ki 1973 or whatever is my date of birth, into the date of birth, what was the American president date of birth, who was the American president at that point of time, what was there. You can have something question after question, question after question, and then whatever the answer is coming, that till that time the complexities of the question is getting answered, it is all right. That's where the rapid processing, you can call it AI, you can whatever that. But till the time you can start telling me ki what would be the commodity price fluctuation, if you can tell me ki sir what would be the expected rating, what would be the expected default rate in this company, that's where the entire prediction and that's where the entire thing starts getting it wrong. You can have a curious case, multiple question, you can have a 5,000 page question and then the IT will give you a fraction of a second answer. Till that time it's all right. Because it means what I've understood from a layman perspective, if you know your question well, then only you will get the answer. If you don't know the question well, then the answer you can't rely upon.
These are enabling tools, so you cannot 100% rely on these answers. That's number one. Second thing is that whenever there is an answer from, especially for the business, you have to put your own human, obviously, intuition and then say, whether it is right or wrong. And most of the time, it has to be tested through the business. It cannot be, you just pick the answer and it is right. It never happens. You test it out multiple times over and then say, it is really suitable for implementation or not. Otherwise, you just shred it off because, it is not giving the results which is required to be given. And we have several instances in our company wherein, we don't get the results which we need. And then, we don't want to actually implement irrespective. And this is a investment, I would say, that, in the process we have learned, what could be the right way to do it. And the business has to actually implement it so that they can assess the actual results. When I was talking about the pricing or when I'm talking about this thing, we have seen certain results and then we know how much accuracy it can bring in. Because, it cannot be 100% accurate. Nothing is 100% accurate in this world. So, you have to take with pinch of salt and then say, what is that you could rely and what is that you should just simply ignore it. So that is the decision making as a manager, as a CFO, as a CEO, you have to always, day in, day out, you have to actually take those, obviously, solutions, in mind.
We have about 3 minutes, so if anybody from the audience wishes to ask a question to the panel. If there is no question, then maybe final comments from each one of you.
The discussion was so great. So, so I think what's pertinent, the answer to, or maybe let me just summarize, what does it mean, right, for the lives of us. The change in our life from a finance perspective is many things, and that comes from everything that was discussed so far. The change is that we all need to therefore learn what tools are available. We all need to understand what regulation, like Hari was saying, affects use of AI and use of such tools. We need to learn and understand how we will manage this whole change that's going to come about. Now, and I think, not to belabor the point that Deepak kept mentioning, which is have the insight to be able to use that tool to the right tool, right, and analyze the output out of it, because it is just a tool that it can throw many times, like Hari said, a black box. It's a black box. So to summarize, for me, as a final comment, I think this is a time for a big change, and we all have to upgrade our understanding and skill around these few things that just got discussed.
We can discuss last thing, I think, so if we can ask all the panel ki how much cost to bear for all this AI and other things. So पैसे के बारे में बात नहीं हुई, CFO की बात करते हैं. If we can just discuss last thing and anything about that, how much should the company, what budget they should have, whether it is linked to turnover, whether it is linked to something, what should be the budget and what is the cost of getting it, all the AI thing done? If we can ask all the expert here.
Time is very short, so maybe another panel.
So I will answer that for you, because we have been dwelling, whether we are spending right amount of time. I'm also the transformation officer of my company, so we actually do dwell on these questions. And it ranges from, 0.5% of your revenue to as high as around 5% or 6% generally. No, so it is not about the big company or a small company. It depends upon how much automation do you need. So especially if it is an IT company, obviously you need far more automations and things like that. But from a manufacturing perspective, I don't think so that we need so much of automation. We can still, because at the end of the day, the cost benefit analysis, giving the job to a person versus doing the job through a system, which will give the most productive and the right answer. That's the way the decisions are taken on a day-to-day basis. So, to your point, for Resurgent, obviously there is no right or wrong answer, but anything between 0.5 to maybe 0.75% would be a very decent amount which you can actually incur. But if you have certain changes which you are going to go into the system, certain years of those would be far more higher than what would you generally. But these are sustainable numbers. And I've gone through Gartner's and different reports and things like that. There is no right or wrong answer. It depends upon what the organization needs and to what extent the automation is required for the company. There is nothing that a single solution fits all. There is nothing of that sort.
Yeah, absolutely right, Mr. Deepak. I think it's dependent on the need in your industry and how much benefit it can bring to your table. So it's truly the cost benefit analysis that finally comes down to, and including in manufacturing industries, by the way. Most recently, a new AI has come into play, which has changed the lives of people who are even engaged in, as hard tasks like even, carving out a kind of bone rib for chicken, and other kind of, meat manufacturing plants. Even that work has been taken over by AI. So it is cutting across all industries. I think everyone has to really, weigh their options and say how much benefit am I going to get out of this, and then go for it and then decide that. One last piece that I will say probably to conclude, a lot of people have this question whether AI is going to eat up my job. Is there a threat?
Deliberately refrain from that because it has been asked, but yes.
Yeah, I really want to answer that thing because, we need to understand what we should do about it. So that will be the last piece that I will say and we'll close that. So this is my two-line answer. If you choose to remain AI, AI can consume your job. If you choose to remain AI, when I say AI, if you choose to remain absolutely ignorant, AI can consume your job. But if you are committed to stay AI, then AI can make your world, your career very interesting. Which is, if you choose to stay alert and informed, then AI can make your world AI, which is always interesting. It is an ever-evolving thing. You have to stay committed to it. You have to keep learning. Like every day can be a new learning coming with AI. So if you are willing to invest your time and energy on that, you can decide which AI definition that you are going to put yourself in. Either absolutely ignorant or alert and informed, then that will make your life always interesting. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much to all the panelists.